Drew, good to see you, Drew. Bishop Mark Foster's in the house. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Daniel, and everybody.
What's up, everybody? Glad you guys are with us, tuning in, jumping on.
Sorry, I'm
still getting everything set up. I don't know about y'all, but I've been on so many Zoom calls today. I feel like I'm Zoom call central.
Because they really Proverbs 27:17.
Jim, were you on that Zoom call earlier with Pastor Chris?
Yes, man. I feel like I'm zoomed out,
I can't
brother.
hear you.
Yes.
Oh, my audio is off. Sorry. It's my audio.
Zoomed out, man.
Yeah, zoomed out. It's crazy. But what we're going to try to do, and we're getting there, everybody jumping on right now. But what my hope is with this whole thing is just to give you as much good information as I can. Sorry, I'm not a good multitasker. I'm looking through who all's on here and also trying to talk. I did a webinar the other day, and I have found out that what I love is I like to be able to see everybody. I don't know about y'all, but I like to be able to see everybody. We did, just give you a little idea before we jump on here with Pastor Craig, is we did a little thing the other day called a digital dream team rally. And we had over 700 devices on. A lot of people were 2 or 3 of them. And we didn't do the webinar style. We did the style where you can see everybody. And I don't know if y'all are doing the multi-view where you can see everybody, like all the little boxes. I'm telling you, it was unbelievable. Everybody was crying because everybody could see each other. And we were all just like, oh my God. So, and then as a pastor, I'm able to call out a bunch of people's names that I knew, and people that I didn't know. I've never known their name because their name was right there on the thing. I was able to say their name. That was the first time I've ever said some of their names, and it was awesome. Made me look like a great pastor and made me feel good. But anyway, it was awesome. It was an awesome moment. Honestly, I think our team put a clip of it on my Instagram. I got super weepy just seeing people again, because we don't do this. We're doing these Zoom calls where you just see one person, or it's a webinar where you just type in a question. And I hate that. I just like to be able to, some of you guys might not be that personality, but I just like to be able to see people. So I'm glad that everybody's on here. Josh joins. You look great back there, bro. You look like the Mafia Don. Where is your camera? It's not on your computer. It's like all the way back on your office. Can you unmute and talk so they can all see you? I don't know if they can see you or not, but it is awesome. You look great. You're talking, your mouth is moving, I can't hear you. So anyway, I'm glad a lot of people are jumping on right now. We'll give them another couple of minutes to jump on. I'll give you guys just a little bit, some of the things that we're doing here in the first 4 minutes, and then we'll jump on to Pastor Craig Groeschel. I know that we're very honored to have him. And I see Bianca Althoff. What's up? Love you. It's good to see you. Love you and Matt. The whole heartbeat of this is not anything other than, man, let's just see if we can help in any way, shape, or form. And the moment that these cease to be resourceful and helpful, we won't do them anymore. We're putting everything that we have on hopecity.com/roundtable. There's a lot of people doing it better than us. We're just doing what we can in a portable environment. If we had a church, I'd probably be on the stage. We just don't have a building, so we have to do what we do. We're doing services right now in a hotel, in a penthouse of a hotel. When the owner found out that we are doing church there, he wrote it off. And so we're not paying a dime for this 2-story, 3-bedroom penthouse that overlooks our city. It's unbelievable. In fact, I'm speaking to their staff on Thursday. And so God has kind of opened the door for us there. It's taken us a few weeks to figure it out and get the lighting right and get the windows covered right to make it look good. But we film, like today, we'll film our Good Friday service. I would encourage you to do a Good Friday service. We're partnered up as you guys, a lot of you guys are, with unite714.com. If you haven't done that, it's the largest prayer movement, we think, in the history of the world. It's just a pretty powerful thing where churches all over the world are praying. And a lot of us are doing Good Friday services. So if you can do that, even if it's just Instagram live and you go on and sing a song or something and then do some communion, we're just encouraging everybody to observe Passover, to do communion, and do that together. But I'm filming that today, or we're filming it tonight. It'll air Friday night, and then we film our services. It looks live, but we'll film our service on Friday, and then we'll play it. And we play it. And I know a lot of guys are saying, listen, just get the wind at your back, just do one service on Sunday. And I think if that's where you are as far as staff is concerned, you should do that. Get as many resources as you have around that one service. We have just found that doing the multiple service times gives people options, and we have a high rate of viewership on all of the services throughout the day. So we're every 2 hours from 7 o'clock down to 9 p.m. and then we put it on demand. So that's just kind of what we're doing, and I hope that's helpful. All the stuff on hopecity.com/roundtable is free, and it will forever remain free. Anything that we have is yours. Anything that we're doing, I'm sure there's 20 people that are doing it better than us, maybe more than that. But we have how to stream live on Instagram. We have found that that's really engaging as people lay in their beds, because most people are laying in their bed looking at Instagram at night, and they're jumping on at least for a few minutes and watching the service. And our hope is to engage them as quickly as we can. So I hope that helps you guys. And I'm going to jump out of the way. I see Pastor Craig is on here. Pastor Craig, are you there? Pastor Craig. Let's check my phone. Oh, here he is. Hang on. Phone is fine. Hang on, he's on his phone. Hang on, technical difficulties. Sorry, guys. We're walking through how to unmute. Do you know how to unmute on the phone? Does anybody know how to unmute on the phone? Anybody else on the phone that can walk us through how to unmute? Because he's talking. Yeah. You got him.
Okay, it looks like I can you hear me?
Got you.
Okay, excellent. For having me on with you, Pastor.
Oh man, I'm so honored to have you on, and all of us know who you are. All of us have preached your sermons. I got to thinking about this today, and just how much of a difference you have made, not just in your city and all the cities that you're planted in, but in the world, because so many pastors look to you, lean on you, not just for sermon content, but for leadership. You are a pastor of pastors, a leader of leaders, and I know you don't need that, but man, that's exactly what you are. And in times of crisis, we look to you and we lean on you because you're doing it so well. Through this whole thing, you've encouraged me, and I love you so much, and I'm grateful for you doing this.
Thank you. Well, I'm learning from you like crazy, and what you're doing portable is unheard of, and I mean anywhere it's unheard of, but much less portable. And then just your heart for every pastor on this call, that those who are listening, you wouldn't hear the behind the scenes pitch that Pastor Jeremy told me, but he just loves you guys so much, and his heart is with you, and so we're just both happy to be on. And he asked me to share a few thoughts about how do we lead through this time, and so I'll kind of go just free form a little bit, talk to you about a few things, and then I won't talk for too long. That way we can shift and talk about what you guys want to talk about. Does that sound good, Pastor Jeremy?
That sounds great, man. I'm just honored to have you here, and I know you'll crush it. And then we'll do some questions and answers after. So if you have questions, send them to Mitch. He's in the chat, and then he'll send them to me. Go ahead, Pastor Greg.
Yeah. So for starters, none of us are experts in this. We've never done church full time this way, and so we're all learning. And so what I try to do in any kind of new situation is do two things. One is kind of step way back first, and then step way in. And so by stepping way back, just starting with some perspective, it really helps me, especially in the middle of any kind of trial or crisis, is to try to keep perspective on this. And I had a mentor, Pastor Jeremy, when I was in my early 20s, tell me, you're probably going to lead through about one major crisis every decade or so. And I was 22, 23 years of age, and I didn't really know what that meant. Like, what does that mean? And so it was when I was 27 when I was serving at First United Methodist Church in Oklahoma City, and the building across the street from ours, the Murrell building, got hit on April 19th in the Oklahoma City bombing. And it not only, killed the people that it killed, which was horrible, and destroyed that building, but destroyed our church too. So our church was completely totaled. We were unable to meet there. And it was 2 years.
I had no idea.
So it was 2 years before that ever church came back. In fact, Life Church was scheduled to start in May, And when the bomb hit on April the 19th, we put Life Church on hold, and I just stayed there for another 9 months before starting, just to help support that church. And so when I look back, that was way more devastating for that church than this is for us, because there was no online, there's no way to even give online. We had no place to meet. And yet that church still stays strong today. And I look back and say, okay, God, help us get through that. My first leadership crisis in my 20s. Then there was 9/11. And, for those who led that, that changed a lot about our country. And in the middle of it, it seemed like we'll never go back to normal. And our churches are still standing on the other side of that. 08, 09 global housing crisis was really tough. Those of you that are old enough to have led through that, tons of layoffs, massively hard time for churches. And yet, our churches stayed strong on that. Here we are a little over a decade later, and we're in COVID-19 2020. And so in my mind, I'm thinking I'm in my early 50s. I hope to be doing this for another 2 decades. I probably got 2 more somethings like this coming, that one day we'll be talking about how we got through it. And so that's just really important for perspective. To remember 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we'll be looking back and we'll be telling the stories of what we did wrong, what we did right, where we saw God's faithfulness. And we just have to remember we will get through this. We will get through this. It's not going to be this way forever. So we need to start with that perspective. Then when we lead, we need to lead with truth, not with fear and not with just what I call naive optimism. Some of my pastor friends, I kind of want to shake them a little bit and say, okay, let's preach faith, but let's not just do this unlimited, like it's all going to be fine. That comes across as naive optimism. And I think we have to look at this realistically and say, this is actually a really big mess. We got lots of people dying. That's a big part of it. Another big part of it is we could have a really, really rough economy for, the next year, 18 months, 2 years, to be whatever it's going to be. And so we have to lead truthfully and acknowledge where the problems exist. That's not a lack of faith. That's just keeping your head on straight. And if we don't acknowledge that, we're going to look stupid. When we're communicating, I like to think of communicating in a different way with my staff and with the church leaders, volunteers, church members, and such. Start with the staff. And, obviously we're in multiple locations in different states and such. And so a lot of you would have your staff with you. Doesn't matter if they're close by, far away, whatever. You have to, I would say, ramp up 10, 20 times the frequency and intensity of the communication. And so whereas I met with staff, my whole staff, only 4 times a year, now I'm doing multiple times a week. And so today I did a video for them. I did a Q&A earlier. And so they just need to hear from us nonstop. When we communicate with them, this sounds basic, but we really need to communicate empathetically and start by thinking about what's going on in their world right now. First thing a lot of them are concerned about is their job. And if we pretend like that's not real, then we're kind of being foolish and we're acting like we don't know what's going on in the world. So we have to kind of have the courage to speak directly into it, whatever it might be. Like, I told our team, I'm thinking about your job so you don't have to, meaning we're strong enough now to where we can weather a lot and not have to have any potential layoffs. That doesn't mean we're great. What it means is we're 24 years old. Had this happened to Life Church when we were 9 years old, we probably would have been facing significant layoffs, or at least needing government help to not lay off. And so it doesn't make us great one way or the other. Just it means it hit us during a season when we have been in the game longer, and so it's a little easier for us. But you have to communicate truthfully with your staff and say, I know this is maybe what a lot of you are asking, so let's talk about it and go directly into that, because until you eliminate their fears or at least speak to them, they can't follow you. If they're afraid and thinking about their own future, they're not waking up thinking about the ministry. And so you have to give them real answers, whatever that is, either comfort or truth, and kind of let them know what's coming. And then here's what I found too, Pastor Jeremy. It's kind of funny, but the questions they're asking a lot of times seem a little bit naive to me until I get down a little bit deeper. And they're sometimes thinking on things on a level that I'm not. And so since they're down in the weeds a little more dealing with people stuff, like they ask, hey, what are we going to do for At the Movies? My answer was, well, that starts in July for us. And so we'll either do it in July or we'll move it or we won't do it at all. So, like that's kind of a silly question. But I didn't realize is they're asking this because now is the time they start ordering supplies for the lobby builds. They're thinking on a level different than I am. And so not only do I want to communicate deep into the weeds. I also want to get down and try to figure out what are they dealing with that I'm not even aware of, because if not, I'm going to speak right over them. I'm going to discount. I'm going to make myself foolish because I honestly don't know what they're dealing with every day. So I've got to be really, 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 really in the weeds with them. When it comes to the church, this is, I'll try to say this as clearly as I can. It's freaking tough to communicate with them when they show up butts in the seat in the building and they're sitting there looking at you. When they're looking at you, it's really tough. I watched church online with my family this weekend, and what I noticed is they were barely watching because they were on their phones. They were distracted by the baby in the room. They were laughing, cutting jokes. This was my family, staff members, barely watching because there's so many ways to be distracted. If we think for a minute that they're hanging on every word we're saying, watching a TV or a little phone or whatever, we're smoking the funny weed and thinking we're way more important than we are. They're not. And so what we have to do is we have to communicate over and over and over and over and over again. The thing I tell our staff all the time is just because you said it doesn't mean they heard it, believe it, or will do it. And I want to say it again because that's worth writing down for any time. Just because you said something doesn't mean they heard it, believe it, or will do it. More than ever, we don't announce, we lead. We lead. And we have to lead toward whatever. I like the way Jeremy was talking about his Good Friday service coming. We're not going to announce, hey, we got a Good Friday service Friday night at such and such time. What we're going to do is we're going to help create a need in a time when you're feeling emotionally disoriented and you don't know what to do. And you might know people that are afraid and asking questions. What we want to do is we want to gather together. If we can't do it physically, we're going to do it digitally, and we're going to break bread together as disciples of Jesus have done for 2,000 years. And, do you feel alone? Do you feel disconnected? For those of you that do, this is for you. So what we're doing is we're not announcing, we're leading towards something. And then I would just say, whatever is important to you, say it again and 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 again. We started doing midweek services, as a lot of you did. You can do that on Instagram Live or whatever. And I think any kind of additional touch points is going to be super valuable. My life group leader that have been our best friends for 20 years, I asked them this week if they were enjoying the midweek services, and they said, I don't know what you're talking about. What's a midweek service? And so some of the top givers, some of my closest friends, some people that I've talked to every week during this didn't know about what is fundamental to us keeping this thing together. They just didn't catch it. No one told it. And so told them, and they weren't paying attention. Then I asked them about we created a couple of new buckets for giving. We're giving away the Church Online platform. That's free to churches. It's not free to us. We are spending now hundreds of thousands of dollars additional a week to have these 20,000 churches on there supporting them. And so I'm empowering our church to give toward that, as well as to giving in people in need. I asked them what they thought about that. Did they understand that, what I was saying? And they missed it. They missed it. So they missed it. My family missed it. Now more than ever, you're going to want to say everything. You're going to want to say at the beginning of the service, in the middle of your sermon, at the end of your sermon, on any kind of video communication you do, on every social media piece. I recommend you craft the language. For example, Church Online, here's the way I'm saying it. While it's free to 23,000 churches, it's not free to us. While most churches are ramping down their expenses, we're ramping ours up because we believe in the body of Christ. While it's unquestionably a higher cost, we believe this is our higher calling. So it's carefully crafted. I'm saying that same language again and again and again. Free to them, not free to us. Higher cost to us, higher calling. And I'm going to say it, I said it 4 times today in different environments. And so you're going to want to say the same things over and over and over again. Another thing is you want to speak to different people with different language. Your business leaders right now, this is one of the best times to connect with them because they're thinking in a different way. For example, I did a leadership podcast on getting how to lead through crisis. And I told all of our campus pastors, go and text this, send it to your business leaders ahead of time and tell them this. Tell them, while most people are thinking about their individual jobs, you're thinking about all the jobs of the people who depend on you. I know you're carrying a heavier load right now, so I wanted to send you something that might be a blessing to you from our pastor. So what that does is that helps them understand, we understand what they're thinking. So in every person, every level you're talking to, you want to talk to them on the level of what they're enduring. And it's really, really different. Some people are being paid by the state or whatever, and this is almost like a staycation for them. Other people are worried about laying off hundreds of thousands, thousands of people possibly. And so especially your business leaders, if you take them, this is a time one of the big mistakes we make as pastors is we speak spiritual, they speak business. If you can take and translate your spiritual language into their business right now, it can be a great time to build a bridge with them. So I just kind of rambled off the top of my head. I'll go ahead and stop, Pastor Jeremy, and I want to make sure we're talking about, Easter or, how we communicate on video, whatever is important to these pastors. So I'll go ahead and pause and then pick up wherever you want to.
You could ramble off the top of your head and be better than most people prepared. That was phenomenal. And I mean, my fingers were flying just writing the stuff down that I think I have forgotten, and that is people aren't paying attention. My own kids weren't paying attention Sunday. In fact,
You're
I was
not.
saying,
You're
hey,
not.
y'all be quiet. You're in church right now.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk real quick, because I know that it's a question that everybody has. What are you doing for Easter? How are you making it intimate? How are you making it special? Are y'all doing any creative elements? And then beyond Easter, it's a two-part question. Beyond Easter, are you doing a series? How are you preparing to move forward?
So for 24 years, I've done series, and this is the first time I'm not in a series because I feel like I have to feel it week to week. I will probably re-engage a series before long because I like to think that way, but I just did week 5 of what I would call a standalone message. And because I feel like at least in this early stages, first week it's fear, and now it's moving more toward frustration, anger. So you have to feel what people are feeling and speak into it right now. I think you might be able to pick some series. Like I say I didn't do a series. It actually turned into one. They ended up packaging it, No Fear, because everything fell underneath that, but that was accidental, not intentional. So my intentionality was to speak into each week. The question on Easter, like how do you make it personal, intimate, is really, really, really good question. We've debated back and forth. So the first week I recorded on a Thursday with a live crowd because we were allowed to, and then Saturday we didn't have church. That's how fast things changed. So from Thursday to Saturday we thought we were having church, and then we weren't. Then the next week I did it with nobody in the room, and it was kind of cold. And then I left the band up on stage, and like what you're doing, Pastor Jeremy, some people in the room. I found that just having some people anywhere brings out more of a relational edge with me. It also gets you into multiple dimensions on the camera where there's more. If you've got multiple cameras, it gives you more reasons to cut away. And it's not just a flat person on a screen. There's movement. So I like that. A lot of our peers, and some of you are probably doing this, you're doing more of the living room or green room shoot where you're tighter on the camera. I think that can be really, really effective. The reason I have not done that yet is because in my mind, I found a lot of people saying everything else is not normal. Seeing you in an environment that looks normal gives me comfort. Obviously, Pastor Jeremy, you can't do that because you can't meet in your school. And so that eliminates that option. I don't know what the best call is. We're still feeling it out. I went ahead with Easter and I gave them a traditional look because I want to keep everything on Easter to being as traditional as it feels because they find comfort more than ever in this time of tradition. Moving forward, you ask, are we going to do series? The answer is probably, I think we'll go back to it because that's what our church, that's a diet they're used to, but I don't know when. Along with Easter, here's what we're doing, and I think many of you have done this before. What we're saying is, hey, you guys want to serve, but you can't serve in the normal ways. We've created a new serving category. It's not really technically new, and then we've called it both digital evangelists, or we've called it influencers, like social media influencers. And so, click on the link below if you want to be an influencer. And then what we're doing is we're just training people to use social media. Like, here's what's crazy.
Just call.
Sorry.
What's that?
You mute your phones if you don't mind. Go ahead. That's great.
Yep. So what's interesting is, like, I've got tens of thousands of people that are active on Instagram or whatever, and they don't follow me. They just have never thought of it. They don't get around to it. And so we're engaging a lot of new people to follow, Life Church or whatever on social media. And then we're teaching them how to do clips, how to repost material, how to comment, how to engage. And then I'm giving them weekly behind the scenes clips where it's just me talking from my home, from my green room, whatever. So they get a little bit of a feel and see things other people don't see. So we're trying to give it a little exclusive behind the scenes look. And we've onboarded, I don't know how many, but it's probably a couple thousand people that would call themselves now social media influencers. We have a real detailed form that any of you guys can come up with to give them and saying, here's, how you repost, what you do, the kind of content, share the podcast, share the message, share the clips, like Pastor Craig, follow, invite people to church. Here's stuff you can post. Here's invitations, invite. And so our social media influence for a church our size would be what I would call below average in effectiveness. And I would say it's taken 2 steps up just in this little season by giving it a new place. So create an atmosphere of evangelism during this time. If nothing else, even if we're not getting a lot of people to come watch our streams live, we want to continue to push raise the evangelistic temperature amongst our people, and at least help them know you care about lost people at this time, and then preach the gospel like crazy, like the buildings are full on Easter, and believe by faith God's going to use it to either reach lost people or at least to stir your people with that evangelistic faith.
Hey, that's a phenomenal question. And I know it's a follow-up that somebody would have. I have it. You have this detailed questionnaire. Is there anywhere that we can get a copy of that or something that's close to it?
Yes, I will forward that to you when we're through the call.
Perfect. So, and then guys, those of you on the call, I'll post that on the, through the email. We'll just send it to you. Just make sure you're signed up on hopecity.com/roundtable. We'll send it to you. Okay. Next question. We got time for a few more. So how has your weekly, daily routine and schedule shifted? Because I know you're a very routine guy. A lot of our guys are dealing with like, man, my life, I can't even plan. I don't know how to plan ahead. How am I doing that? I know you talk about that a lot on the podcast. And if you're not a listener to the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast, you should be. It is the best leadership podcast that I've ever listened to. It's phenomenal. So I don't know if you can answer that question. How are you doing your weekly, daily routine?
Yeah. So it's interesting. There's a lot of my staff members that I think they're struggling with the lack of discipline. And so we've been sending stuff out just to help them know what to do. Basic stuff like, don't go to bed at 2 a.m. from watching, Tiger King. Go to bed at normal time, get up at a normal time, set your alarm. And I'm asking our staff, it sounds really silly, but I'm just asking them, go ahead and get dressed up like you're coming to the office, even if you're not, because what that does is it triggers your mind. Today's going to be a productive day. And it's just like if you're going out with your wife and you get dressed up, you feel good about yourself, versus if you just come to the gym and you come into a meeting with a business leader, you're going to feel kind of embarrassed. I need every edge I can get working from home that this is going to be a productive day. And then we're helping them set up workspace, giving them, like 3 priorities, meaning I'm going to get these 3 things done today. A lot of them are kind of wandering and not figuring out what to do. But the rhythms for me personally, as a lot of you have changed a lot. There's rumors that I record all my messages early. That's just not true. I do probably 80% of them on Saturdays and Sundays. And now I did Easter today. I did the midweek service today. I did my all-staff communication today. I did my all-church communication today. I did all my social media today. I did all my, 12 other little videos we do today. And so what that does is Tuesday was my study day, and so it's wrecked that. Tomorrow will be the first full study day that I've gotten since I got out of quarantine. And so my whole weekly rhythm is wrecked. And so we're having to kind of recreate around that. I think that's just part of it. And, just kind of pretend like you're starting over. And one good thing is you can start over, meaning a lot of you might have bad habits, things you don't want to do. There were a lot of things that our organization had probably outgrown that I let continue to happen that I'm saying no to in this time, meaning you never waste a crisis. You leverage a crisis to correct some things you should have corrected in the good times, because now you have air coverage. Correct them. If there's some things getting to you that shouldn't get to you, stop doing them, and then just recreate it. Like, sometimes a good exercise is, if we were starting over today, what would we do and not do? Basically, we're starting over today, meaning this is a different sport. Church online is 100% different sport. We're still playing with a ball, meaning we still preach, we use the Bible, and we have songs. But the difference between baseball and soccer, that's what the difference is between all online or all physical. It's a different sport, different rules, different language, different strategy. And we're still trying to put spiritual points on the board, but the way we do it is incredibly different. And if we don't recognize that and don't change a lot of what we're doing, then we're going to end up playing a different sport and losing.
That's so good. How, follow up on that. How are you, spiritual points on the board, how are you measuring metrics right now in y'all's?
Well, that's a great question. And this is personal bias, just to kind of tell you, all these vanity numbers it streams online is just stupid. Okay. Just stupid. It's just stupid. Stupid. And the reason is you can't compare your numbers to Life Church because you don't know how we do it. You were talking about having a few services. We'll have 139 Easter services. So my number is gonna demolish some guys having 2 because I got 139 different services. My bias would be, like the church down the street. I love the pastor. He does a 10:45 service. I'm kind of like going, I kind of want to call him. If I knew him better, I would. Like, hey, why don't you do at least 3, man? Like you said, Pastor Jeremy, give your people some options. Just run it 3 times, run it 4 times, run it 5 times. People are busy. For us, if we had a couple, we would crash it, meaning we can barely, it slows down at 10 o'clock right now. We had to create 5 different, basically online services. So you're thinking you're at the one, you're at one of 5. There are 5 different ones going on, or it would crash the chat. And so give them multiple options. And then as far as numbers, what we have to do is you don't compare your numbers to anybody else. It's only against yours. How many clicks did we have on such and such? How long did they stay? How much did we pay for advertising? I mean, I can drive my number way, way up by buying Google AdWords. That means nothing. A click means nothing. I could drive up that number by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands and only have dozens or maybe hundreds stay for more than 5 minutes. So we're not going for bragging numbers. We're just trying to compare with what we did last week and then create new baselines. And so now, we had a few things we measured. Now we're measuring a lot more. How can we get people connected in midweek? How many click-throughs do we have on the weekly communication? How many new people do we have serving? How many new people do we have giving? How many people gave in the buckets that we're converting to giving online? Big thing. Suggestion, take everybody that you have in your church that's never given online, communicate with them directly. Again, we're targeting our communication. We're not telling everybody, hey, give. We're going and we're telling those people, let me show you specifically how to download the app. Here's how you click on the app. Here's how you give on your credit card. Give them a detailed, walk them through how to do it because they need different communication. For people who've given one time online, we want to give them communication. Here's how you click recurring giving. So we're going to target our communication. We're going to target what we measure. We're going to measure what matters to us. The things that we're measuring at Life Church, probably 80% of you wouldn't care about whatsoever. But hopefully you're going to find 10 things to measure we don't care about. Bottom line is don't be asking who does what. What's the multiple for online? 1.7, 2.2. I heard that. That's just a joke. Just look at real numbers, whatever they are, measure them against your own numbers, and then ask yourself, which one of these matter to us, and what are we going to do to improve them? And this just sounds really basic and really almost offensive, but which ones matter to us, and what are we going to do to improve it? And that's what you've got to determine. If you can't clearly define what it means to put points on the board for you right now, then it's going to be hard for you to create what you see as a win. What someone like Elevation Church and Transformation Church, they're so strong online. This could be revival-like for them, meaning they could come out on the other side way, way, way stronger because this is like fishing in a well-stocked pond for them. For someone else, if you've got 50% of your giving that came in the buckets, what matters to you is getting that giving online or you die. So you're not measuring the same thing Elevation or Transformation Church is. You're defining what matters to you, and then you're trying to create effectiveness in those areas that matter to you. Don't look around. Don't compare. Don't be moved by what anybody else says. Don't be moved by what I say. You determine what do we need to do in Pasadena, Texas, and Norfolk, Virginia, whatever. This is what we need to do to create wins here, and then just put your head down and figure it out for where you are.
Man, that's brilliant stuff. And I think it takes a lot of pressure off of us. What you just said for me helps me is, listen, we're creating a new baseline. So let's just look at last week, not somebody else. You mentioned this. you're tracking, like, how are people serving? Are they signing up? How are you guys engaging your volunteers right now? Because a lot of us, our volunteers were in person actively doing something at a church location. Now they're at home. And I know you mentioned doing the influencers. Is there anything else that you're doing to engage volunteers and to build them and to bring them in as far as new volunteers is concerned?
Super question. So at every campus, our team is called Every Person. So if you can imagine, I don't know how many calls that is, but it's a lot. So priority number one was everybody gets a phone call, some sort of personal communication. Hey, this is Pastor so-and-so from Albany, New York, and we just want to reach out and see how can we pray for you. Is there anything you need? And so the very first thing is we're going to make this big church feel small. That's phase number one. Phase number two is anywhere we had a meeting, we asked, could we duplicate it online? So everyone on the host team, on the usher team, anyone that meets on the weekend, we're still doing weekly huddles, meaning let's all get on Zoom and let's meet and pray together for 10 minutes before service. Same kind of stuff you guys are doing. None of this is unique or new, but FaceTime meetups, Facebook meetups before service or after service, meaning we're going to call it lobby time. Trying to think what else I heard last night that they're doing. Oh, now they're crashing life groups. So we've asked our small groups to meet online. You know, a lot of them are, a lot of them aren't, but we're finding out the ones that are, and then we're asking, can a pastor drop in and visit your life group? They love that. So a pastor comes in, spends a few minutes, just talks to their life group, says, how can we pray for you? So in our context, if you can imagine 34 locations in 10 states, there's tens of thousands of people we can't track normally. Okay, what we're trying to do is going in the ones that we can track, what can we do to help them connect with each other, to connect with a staff member, and to connect with Jesus in this time. And that's all we're trying to do is commit any kind of connection. So one thing I'm going to do next week, again, targeted. We're going to take our top 3,400 givers. I don't know how they found that breakdown, but they broke it down to 3,400. And they're going to get all on a call like this from me. And for 15 minutes, I'm going to tell them, you know, first of all, I know what you're dealing with is more intense. You're feeling more pressure than others. Second thing is some people serve on the host team. Some people serve as the usher. You actually serve Monday through Friday as a great business leader. I'm going to speak value into that. But that is spiritual. I believe in what you're doing. Then I'm going to give them a little 4-part teaching that'll take about 4 minutes on prioritizing what they do. Then I'm going to pray for them. So all I'm doing is trying to give them a pastoral touch from me. We're looking for just unique opportunities like that to try to make a bigger church feel small, or if you've got a smaller church, make a smaller church feel strong. So yours might be, you got a church of 200 people and you're just a church plant, and yet all of your people went down and helped stock a food bank. Then what you're going to do is you're going to make a small church look strong and say, here's what we did. Because of you all, we fed 800 people through this food bank, or like what you did, Pastor Jeremy, this weekend. Here's our quilt making crew that they're making thousands of masks to help people in need. So what you did is you just made a big church look massively effective. And so it's, what do you want to show? What do you want to celebrate? And whatever you're showing or celebrating tends to you're either creating the right emotions and right values or the wrong ones. And if you're not creating anything, the trajectory is away from caring. That's what we have to understand. The trajectory is toward sleeping in, toward Doritos, toward couch potato, toward worrying about watching CNN and panicking the world's coming to an end, worrying because you lost your stocks, binge watching TV until the middle of the night. The trajectory is away from us, away from God. We have to do everything we can to fight against the gravitational pull away. The sheep don't stay in the sheep pen. If the door is open, they're going to scatter. And so we're doing everything we can to help them feel loved and cared for.
That's phenomenal. I know we don't have much longer. A couple more questions. One, and I know it's the burning question on everybody here. You said you're going to do some notes for some of your business leaders. Is there any way we could get our hands on some of those points that you're going to use to talk to business leaders?
The notes are in my head. So I did a teaching to our staff by the providence of God about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and I called it the 4 tiers of effectiveness. The short version of the story is I've got 3 assistants and an intern that serve in my office, and the 3 assistants were all business owners. They're super high-powered ladies, and I'm working them in the ground. They're dying, and so we're all overwhelmed. So we either hire more, which we don't want to do because we want to stay lean, or we redefine our priorities. So we did an exercise that turned out into being a tool we use for our church. I called it the 4 tiers of effectiveness. It was accidental. I just said, let's just do tier 1. Tier 1 is what's absolutely mission critical, meaning if we don't do this, the boat doesn't float. Tier 2, it's what is strategic but not essential, meaning it really matters, but it's not. If we didn't do it, it wouldn't go away. Tier 3 was what's meaningful. It's not strategic. It's meaningful but not vital. And then tier 4 is what's externally initiated. Okay. The reason why I hesitated on your invitation to do this call is because I'm bombarded with externally initiated stuff. Okay. Can you be on Daystar Thursday night with TD Jakes and Mike Todd and whatever? I gave that one a no because I just can't, can you do this? I've got, like everybody else, be on this prayer initiative. I did this one because I really value you. And it was this was a friendship one because there's so many tier 4 things that if I do very many of them, I'm not going to do tier 1s. Okay.
Good.
Can you come on Instagram Live with me? I've done 2 of those. I've turned down probably 30 because I don't see them as being a big win. Right now, almost everything we do is tier 1. Tier 1. What keeps the boat floating? Is the podcast tier 1 or tier 2? The answer is it's tier 2, meaning it's strategic, but it's not mission critical. That means if anything on tier 1 is not getting done, there's not a podcast coming out next month. And that's the way you have to think about it. And so I'm going to kind of go through a brief teaching with our business leaders because so many people feel paralyzed right now. We got a bazillion tier 3 ideas coming up from our staff. We got 20 bazillion tier 4 proposals from everyone else who's creating content or wants us on there, whatever. And you guys all have that same kind of thing. Come be a part of this movement, blah, 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 blah. At this point, we got to get through this crisis. That's tier 1. We got to pay the bills. That's tier 1. We got to create content for this weekend. That's tier 1. We got to lead our church. That's tier 1. Everything else goes down. And so that's what I'm going to teach them on. And that's what in the middle of this crisis for our staff, what tier is this? There are so many things I would have said yes to in other seasons that are an easy no because they're not a high enough tier right now. I recommend all your pastors under everyday come up with your own language, your own skin around it, teach it to your own staff. And it's just a great filter to make sure what's going to happen is every church that grows and becomes successful, you're going to be able to do more things. Just because you could doesn't mean you should. If you end up doing too many things, you're going to diversify your power and you're not going to be powerful anywhere. You in the early years, you grow with your yeses. In your later and stronger years, you grow with your no's. These filters, these tiers help strengthen and give you confidence in your no's so you can say yes to the fewer and most important things that really do. And this is why I'm telling, your pastors, begging you, please define your wins. I don't care what anybody else measures. What matters to you, measure it. Then figure out how do you win there. That's your tier 1, maybe tier 2. Don't let anybody else's measurement, Life Church, my opinion, Pastor Stephen, Pastor Andy, Pastor Jeremy, Pastor Chris, anybody, don't let their priorities, their wins, take your eye off what you need in this season. The season you're in is a different season than the one I'm in. Therefore, the places you have to win are different than the places I have to win. My opportunities are different. My threats are different. Same with you. Just look at yours, have confidence in where you are, create the measurements that help you know if you're winning or losing, and then figure out how to win in those things. And don't let lower tier opportunities rob you from higher tier priorities.
That's phenomenal. And I cannot tell you how grateful we are that you came on here. I'm going to ask one more question. This will be the last one. You are kind of the king of delegate tasks. You create followers, delegate authority. You create leaders. How can we empower more people in a time when I feel like, man, I just need to take over everything. I kind of need to take control of this because if we don't do it well, everybody's kind of feeling that pressure. How do I continue to delegate authority even at a time when I feel like I need to take over?
That's a really, really good question. And there are certain things right now that you just don't want to let go of. It's my opinion. I had plans to preach less this year than I've ever preached. And I planned that while I was in quarantine. I came out with the most aggressive, I'm taking more time off, enjoying my family. I've busted my butt for 24 years. It's time to shift gears. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to be visible and lead this thing. So I think there are certain things, the visible leadership, whatever you call yourself, you're the captain, you're the coach, you're the, you're the pilot, whatever it is. They don't care what the stewardess says. If there's turbulence, they want to know what the pilot thinks. And so there's turbulence right now. You've got to pick up the microphone and be the pilot. No one else can do that. On everything else that's downline, tons of stuff, what I'm doing is I'm relaxing my standards and recognizing the goal is not perfection right now. The goal is just good execution. And, we're turning stuff like you all are in hours instead of days. And so we're gonna call it GETMO, good enough to move on. GETMO, GETMO, good enough to move on. While our goal may be excellence or a 9 out of 10 during normal season, in this season I'm going to delegate more to free me up to do what only I can do, and then I'm not going to be leaning over everybody's shoulders and obsessing over, oh, that wasn't quite good enough. I'm just going to realize we're giving away more authority to people who haven't had it. Some people are going to rise and become great leaders. Others will prove they don't quite have it, but this isn't my time to judge their abilities. It's my time to just get the important things done. If I'm getting too far down in the weeds, if I'm obsessing over the wrong things, it's going to take me away from the cockpit. We're not going to be flying this plane. So right now, it's my opinion, and it may change soon if I'm burning out, but you've got to be visible and confidently leading this. It doesn't mean optimistically, meaning everything's going to be fine, but confidently in charge. Here's what we're doing. We're thinking long-term. We're planning short-term. You can't delegate that. Everything else, man, if you don't delegate, you're not going to have the headspace to do those most important things. And so this is a great time to take risks on people. We're seeing some rookies rise and do great things. We're seeing a few people drop the ball, but there's grace in times of crisis in those other things. And so this is the hands down best time and most important time to delegate like you never have before.
Well, man, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you doing this. It's a massive blessing for me and every person on here. And before you go, would you mind just saying a prayer for us?
I would love to. Yep. Father, thank you for Pastor Jeremy, for his family, for Hope City. What a blessing this church is to Houston and the nation and beyond. Keep your hand upon him, God. Open up doors for him to do more. Thank you for a pastor, God, with a heart for pastors, and for every pastor or leader on this call. I pray, God, anything that I said that is wrong or wrong in their context, you give them the wisdom to step over that. Anything, God, that's a word from heaven for them to apply, I pray that at least one thing would be clear as a point of a next step for them to lead their churches. We pray, God, that we'd have our faith in you like never before, that the same risen Christ that changes lives in buildings, changes lives on the other side of screens. So, God, we trust in the power of your word. We trust in your Holy Spirit to do things we can't see. Empower these pastors and leaders, God, with divine confidence from heaven that you've called them for such a time as this to lead their churches into the next level of effectiveness. We know, God, we'll have some losses. We know we'll see more wins. We know, God, that you're working in all things in ways that we couldn't even see yet. So build their faith, God, to trust in Jesus, to preach him like their buildings are full, believing, God, one day they will be with more people gathering to worship you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor Craig. Everybody give him a hand. They're all clapping for you right now, Pastor Craig.
Thank you.
Man, we love you so much. And,
hey, thank you.
Thank you, man. Guys, what we're going to do is, thank you, Pastor Craig. What we'll do is,
love you guys.
Love you too, man. We'll put that information, the questions for how to create the influencer document on hopecity.com/roundtable. If you want to get a reminder of that, just also Dr. John Maxwell is sending us some stuff this Thursday. And so if you want to get that stuff for free, you can post that on there. I saw a legend on here and I want to kick to him for just a minute. Pastor Todd Mullins of Christ Fellowship, just an unbelievable pastor, pastors a monster church that is also incredibly innovative down in Florida. In fact, we've used some of their ideas. He came up with this idea of a pop-up campus that was unbelievable. And I love you, Pastor Todd, and I just would like for you to jump on real quick. Can you unmute yourself and just kind of tell us what you're doing and how you're walking through this, man?
Yeah, Jeremy, thank you so much. And man, what Pastor Craig gave us was so so great. And so many of the things I know many of you are doing, we've been making calls to everybody. What started off as care calls, we're now beginning to turn into coaching calls, because we found that most of the care has taken place. We've prayed with people, but I want to coach these people up through this time. And so we're starting something coming out of Easter called the Get Fit Challenge, Get Stronger Challenge. It's all about, we see everybody trying to get fit on the other side of this whole journey of being quarantined. We want to get them fit spiritually. And so we're putting all of our classes. We normally don't have a lot of classes, but we're strategic classes that will help people grow, understand the Bible. All those are going up, and we're challenging people now. And then our staff and our key volunteers are going to be coaching them through getting them on to those classes. One of the things we're doing with our lead team right now is I want to be both nearsighted and farsighted. And so I jumped in late to the conversation. Craig might have hit this, but there's things you need to do right now, and there's things you need to do right now for later. And so when I look at what's needing to happen right now, we've already redeployed a lot of our staff. We have 400 staff that are doing different things, but it kind of was a Band-Aid for the first couple of weeks. Go help this, go do this, go figure this out. I really believe if what I hear that digital is the new default right now, then we need to structure that way, and we need to staff that way. And so our lead team is looking at how do we need to restructure in the short term? What teams do we need to have in place? People that used to maybe over here, they were on this campus, they answered to this team. Now they need to be on this team for this season. We don't know how long that season's going to be. And I believe we're going to jump into that this week, where we're actually restructuring and retooling our staff for more of a permanent position and role they're going to fill. The second thing we're doing is we're having digital boot camp for our staff. We didn't realize how much we all didn't know. I mean, some of them, the younger ones, they all know it great, but others of us, man, hit or miss what we know. And so we are actually going to start holding boot camp to get everybody up to a certain level of understanding technology, terminology, and then we want to build out some experts in fields, like some to be experts in the Facebook field, some to be experts in the Zoom field, some in Instagram. And so we can actually create almost like a genius bar for our staff and team, and then our team of volunteers that we're deploying online, rather than just hoping they know how to do groups online and hoping they know how to figure out Zoom, and hoping if we could actually create a help desk for our staff as well as for our congregation. We believe we can take this thing farther, and we think it's really important to help them do that. When it comes to volunteers and Dream Team, this will be the last thing I'll share unless there's something you want to know. That's been a big question. You've got all these people that are committed to your church. They love your church. And over the last couple of weeks, what can they do besides maybe post or repost or like? And we are starting to build out the things that need to happen in this season. And instead of just asking our staff to do it, we're going to be asking our staff to actually lead the Dream Team in doing this, our Dream Team. So obviously there's the influencers, which I kind of feel like that's the lowest level. Repost, like, send, influence, but important. Secondly, I wrote down that we're going to challenge them to start or lead online groups. If they're not already in a group, they need to pull out maybe and lead one if they're not leading one, because we've got all these new people that we want to get in community. Third, care and prayer. So we're actually going to deploy a bunch of our volunteers to be online care and prayer pastors. So we're not, again, just depending on our staff. 4, connections, following up on all these new people that we're getting tidbits of information. I had one guy say we need to have a connection team just for Facebook. When somebody likes something or posts it, we see if they're in our database. If they're not, that's a new lead, and that team would go after that person, right? So we're getting real specific and kind of detailed in that. We're also going to have some teams of Dream Team that will follow up on streams of people, like our business leaders. And we're doing a weekly business podcast for the business leaders through this time. And then we think like medical professionals. We're still building out what are those different streams that are already represented in our volunteers, already doing this work, but in the season, we need to minister to them in a different way. And then the last thing is putting together a call center with volunteers manning it. So instead of just leaning on the staff to do those things, we're going to train the staff up to equip the saints for service. All those people, all of our Dream Team are saying, give us something to do. And we've been the last couple of weeks just trying to keep our head above water like everybody else. And we didn't have anything for them to do specifically, but we're going to be building that out over the coming days. Hope that helps.
Oh, it's brilliant. In fact, it was like drinking from a fire hydrant. This is why you're genius and why you do things so well. This is a great question. Sean Nepstad asked it. In fact, Sean, unmute yourself and ask that question because I think you'll phrase it better towards Todd, because I think it's a question that every one of us are asking because it's like we're stuck in the middle. Can you ask that question?
Yeah. Leaders are always looking around the corner. That's kind of what we do. We're seers, we're leaders. We're always seeing what's around the corner first. Yeah. Todd, talk about maybe how you're, it's hard to see around the corner when all you're looking at and all you're dealing with is what is right in front of you. So all we're thinking about is this weekend. And how are you leading from here, but also still looking around the corner, planning for what's ahead? Most of the time we're like, what are we doing in 2 weeks? Man, we haven't thought that far. We're just trying to get through Easter. We're just trying to get through this because things are changing so much. So that was kind of my question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And I would say, I think in the first couple of weeks, I was there with everybody. We're just trying to figure out what's the new normal and what do we need to do and how do we make this effective? And some of that will continue, but I'm taking my lead team and we're pulling up above that. And we've kind of now have enough in play where we know we're doing the noon prayer touch points. The campus pastors are doing their touch points. The teams are kind of on this motion of what needs to happen. But if the leader doesn't get up and look above it and figure out what's next and what's coming, then we're always going to be staying with, just a few days maybe behind of what's coming. So I've got like about 4 or 5 of us that are, our main job is just to project what needs to happen in the short term and in the long term. And I think the short term big changes we need to make are going to feel long because several months of this is going to feel long. And I know there's a lot of people like, oh, we'll be back in it. Well, in South Florida, we're not planning on being back in anything real soon. So I'm challenging our team to go, what do we need to build out? And again, Kerry Newhoff, his whole thing is about the digital is the new default. And if that's true, if there's going to be people that for a long time are staying away from crowds, and all the people maybe that we've engaged new aren't sure they want to come in a building, or you go, man, I can get everything I get at church. I can get it right here in my pajamas every Sunday morning. The kids ministry's great and everything's great. And people just self-select not to come anymore. Then as churches, we have to be great at doing ministry and church online. And so we've got an opportunity to get great at it right now. And so I'm trying to put my best people on not maintaining, but on projecting where we need to go.
That is brilliant. Sean, any follow-up?
I just love what Phil Klein said a couple weeks ago. He said, plug in the numbers to the equation. So it's almost like we have a couple of different equations. If it continues to go this way, this is what we'll do. If it continues to go this way, this is what we'll do. And we haven't met in a couple weeks. We're thinking about going online. So that's a big strategy for us right now. You guys online? You guys doing that?
Yeah, we're all doing online. Todd, thank you so much, man. You are, if you guys aren't following Todd, he's one of the most brilliant leaders that I know. He's connected to so many people and very humble about it, about the size of the church and what they're doing. Been following you for a long time, and I'm so glad you're on here, man. It's just such a blessing.
Always learning, man. Thank you for including me.
Love it. Well, guys, I want to make sure that I buzz. I'm gonna do a rapid fire round, and I'm gonna try to answer these. And I'm always gonna default to Phil Klein, the genius, who's on the call. So I've got a bunch of questions, and I'm just gonna rip through them real quick. Some of these were for Pastor Craig, so I'm gonna answer as him. First, let me go work out. Never mind. Okay, that ship has sailed. So, okay, what about children and youth right now? I think, honestly, you focus on what you're doing well. Phil said this a couple of weeks ago, and it was a mind blower for me. He said, listen, if you weren't doing something well before this crisis, you're probably not going to get really great at it right now. So if you weren't doing missions in a great way before the crisis, just keep doing weekend services well. If you have any additional bandwidth, yes, do something for students, do something for children. What I would encourage you to do is not try to do your own stuff, especially for kids ministry. A lot of you guys pastor churches under 1,000. That's what my heart is pounding for, is guys that pastor churches under 1,000. I was raised by a guy who pastored a church under 1,000. He's on this call. I love my father. I give you honor. It's way harder than I ever dreamed that it would be to be a pastor. And so during this season, use everything that is free that you can use. I think we're using, who are we using? We're using, for kids. I think it's a Gateway stuff. We're using some of Gateway stuff. We're using some of Rick Warren stuff. They put out this free stuff for kids. And so that's our worship. So it makes it look awesome. Mitch, you're on here. I think I saw you guys using some stuff. What are y'all using for kids? Are you still on here, Mitch?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have been on Orange since we launched. So Orange curriculum is actually, they're putting out a whole package of videos for preschool and for elementary, which are worship, and then the Bible lesson, the story, and then we're adding the take-home page that parents can print off and do the small group activity at home. But we were doing Orange already, so it looks, I have 2 small kids. They're getting the exact same content they got when we were meeting live. So
that's phenomenal. So that's what I would say. We just this week produced some youth stuff, and I think it's going to be great. Our team is great, but they finally had some of the bandwidth. I don't even want to say they had bandwidth because some of them are on here. I know you guys did, and you're killing it. When's the right time for normal sermons, not just faith over fear? I think faith over fear has to be a part of sermons for the next couple of months, maybe even more than that. I mean, it really is a theme that we preach all the time. I love what Craig said. Don't act like nothing's happening. We can't act like we're back to normal when we're not back to normal. So one of the things that I'm trying to do every weekend is look right into the camera and say, I know you're in pain. I know you're hurting. I know you don't know when this is over. I don't know when this is going to be over. I don't have any answers other than Jesus Christ. One of the staples that I've been saying is we don't have a cure, but we do have an answer, and the answer is Jesus. I think if you find something that you can constantly say, we can still preach and have a good time. I like to laugh. I use a lot of humor. And so I'm trying to continue doing that. People seem to be even more disengaged and distracted. What is a healthy time for online service? That is a great question, especially if you don't have a large staff bandwidth to host every chat room all day long. So we put a large amount of pressure on our staff. We're every 2 hours from 7 a.m. all the way to 9 p.m. But we're getting a large amount of views and engagement on all of those services. For us, the peak service times would be the peak normal service times, and it's 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. We have lots of views and engagement because we're not just looking at views, we're actually looking at the engagement because that's really what tells us if they're really taking this home. So I would say, look, now we've done this for a few weeks. Look and see where the engagement is. If you're doing a 3 p.m. service and there's not a lot of people on it, don't be afraid to kill that. Go where the engagement is. We're trying something new this week. We're rebroadcasting tonight, 2 service times, 7 and 9, and we'll go live with all the chats and all that stuff. So it'll feel like Sunday, and we're testing it. We're going to see. It's a good time to be innovative, but it's not a good time to be wasteful. And so if you have staff trying to staff a 3 p.m. service that you're getting no engagement on, kill that thing. Do 1 service on Sunday morning. My preference is options. I wouldn't do just 1. I would do 2. Give them options. And here's why. In the middle of a service, it happened for me. I can't tell you how many times I got up and had to go wrangle my kids during the middle of the service. And we were watching our own service. And so it's good to have something you can go back to. All right. What are the areas of church that will always be different now, even when we can meet again? What will not go back the way it was? That's a great question for Pastor Craig. I don't know if it's a phenomenal question for me. For us, I think it has shifted the way we look at people. I think we're actually looking at people more than we've ever looked at people. I think we looked at crowds, and I want to say that we looked at people, but I don't know that we actually engaged with nearly as many people as we are engaging with now. Here's what I can tell you. If we don't find a good way to continue doing that, when we go back to meeting live, it will feel like the church went dark. And so I think this is not just something that's here for a little while. This is a new, probably one of the biggest arms of your church, and that's digital engagement. We will pull more volunteers, you'll pull more giving, you'll pull more salvations. All of that can happen if you don't build this for temporary. If you think, I'm preparing my head, now I'm not making a prediction, but I'm preparing in my head that if this lasts till August, how can we sustain that? What can we do now? I know what we're doing is not always sustainable. What can we do now to move towards sustainability? Because I don't believe, unless a miracle happens, that we're all going to go back at the same time, that everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, whoa, let's fill football stadiums and baseball stadiums and let's go. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's going to be a trickle effect, 200 people here, 300 people here. I think you can have a bunch of people in your church with masks on. I think it is what it is. So I think you have to be strong that the conversation doesn't end just because we can gather again. So I think that's how church changes forever. I know there's some guys that are concerned hey, what happens if people don't come back? What happens if, what happens when we can come back and they're more comfortable? Now more than ever before, you give them ownership in the church. They've never received a personal phone call, most of them, from the church. They're receiving that now. They're getting more. I'm telling you, you got about 2 or 3 more weeks to really get in their routine. I told our team we had 3 or 4 weeks to get in people's routine. And if we didn't get in their routine, they would have a new normal that did not involve us and many of them, God. And so we had to find our way into their routine. So I think right now, the critical piece is not, take this with a grain of salt, is not doing something for the youth, doing something for the children. I think the critical piece is doing a good weekend event and contacting every person in your church multiple times, and not just the big givers, every person in your church. I think you should engage with the big givers. We're doing that, but every person in church, because at the end of the day, when we add value to people, God adds value to us. And that does not change. It's the principle of success. So yes, there may be some people that drift, but I think your church will be stronger on the other side of this. And especially if you position this in your head. And this is what I want to say to every church planner out there. Remember this, it's not your church, it's God's. And he's going to take care of it. He's promised that he would, and he's going to. So I think we need to hear that. Let me see if there's anything else. How have you used this season to rearrange staff, resources? What new staff positions have been created or altered? I think Craig kind of answered that. We moved our whole staff around. We reorged everything. We put a crisis project manager in place who kind of leads our whole staff through the crisis. Literally, that is her job, is to project manage the crisis. Our programming department that led all production, creative, and all of our programming and worship. Sorry, I'm getting help from the side over here because my brain. Now everything goes through programming because everything's digital, everything's virtual. So it's kind of shifted us a little bit. And then our entire staff now knows that they are a part of the online care team. So in addition to, if I was a warehouse manager, I'm not managing the warehouse anymore. I'm now managing a couple of chat rooms on the weekend, and then I'm calling people during the week. So those are kind of no-brainers. I think you guys probably already know that. We've answered that question. What specific principles are your go-tos during a crisis? I will tell you this. My principles in this is I'm working on getting healthy. Craig talked about it, that, this highlights everything that you already weren't. So if you weren't disciplined before, you're really not disciplined now. You're eating more pretzels with peanut butter in them than ever before. And that's my go-to, guys. It's killing me. I'm calling them communion, that and IBC root beer. Cheers. Anyway, so I think what I have to remember is I'm having to be more selective of what I'm listening to and what I'm reading. So I think you should do that. I think there's still a lot more questions. I'll try to get to them at another time. I'm not 100% what we're going to do next week, but if you want to jump on hopecity.com/roundtable, we want to give you whatever we have. And if you want something, hit Carla up, Carla at hopecity.com. Anything that we have, you can have. It is yours. We'll give you the free stuff from Dr. Maxwell, the stuff from Craig Groeschel. Again, I'm not trying to build anything but church. So somebody's unmuted, if you don't mind. Muted up. It was Justin Fraley. I heard you, man. I heard your kids yelling. It's awesome. All of us are dealing with that. So I love you guys. I'm so honored to get to serve you and the kingdom. And if you get a chance, go on Craig Groeschel's Instagram and just tell him thank you. I think it'll mean a lot. And if you haven't listened to his last 2 podcasts, he did 2 podcasts for the crisis leadership and leading from home. Both of them are phenomenal. Pastor Todd Mullins, I can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate you, bro. I love you guys. God bless you. HopeCity.com/roundtable. Hope it helps. Have a great week.